Okay, welcome back to the Unity Basics tutorials. And in this one, I'm going to do a real quick little video on how to parent objects and how to make objects children of other objects. This is going to serve us pretty well for what we're doing in this particular example. I'm going to show you two examples and ways that you can actually use this to your advantage. So if we hit play right now, you will see that this is where we left off. We have a cube that can move around and it bumps into the other shapes. But you'll notice that the cube, if it's pushed just in the right direction, it will actually rotate in a strange way. It'll actually rotate its position, and now the WASD keys are a little trickier to use because the object is actually pivoted from its original origin location. So the keys don't work quite right. So this is a pretty common thing that you're going to have, issue that you're going to have when you're creating a game like something like this. And the easiest way to fix that problem is to have your camera parented, as a child of your player objects. So in this case, we have our cube, which is our player. Okay, and what we can do is, you can see on the side here, we've got our cube selected. We can actually take the camera itself and drop it onto the cube like that. All right, and you'll notice that when we do that, that the camera goes inside of the cube. And what it did is it actually made these two objects joined. All right, the camera and the cube are now connected to one another. So when this object moves, the camera moves. When this object rotates, the camera rotates. Everything we do with this object will affect the camera because they are basically grouped to one another. So let's look at how that looks when we press play. All right, so now you can see the character is always centered in our view because that's where the camera was. And if we push on the side of an object and rotate that cube a little bit, you will see that that cube rotates so that it is always facing us because the camera is linked to it directly. And if we fall off the edge, we get this sort of an effect where we are falling with the object, and we're actually just going to fall forever because there is no ground and we are in space, and it goes on forever. It's like falling out of the map of your favorite game. All right, so that is a cool little thing you can do to link the two to create a parent object for another object. And on that same principle, we can take this camera and we can actually move it on its own. If we go to the camera and we go to move it, so that the camera is actually resting inside of the cube. All right, something like this, and we can try to center that as best as we can. It doesn't really matter. And the useful thing about this is if I hit play, you will see now that we kind of have a first-person perspective of our cube. All right, we are now inside of our cube controlling it. So this would actually be a good sort of starting point for a first-person type of game, where you set your character's camera inside of the object and everything happens from within that object. Now, the way this is built right now is not the way I would have done it, but it shows you how this can be very effective at creating different types of gameplay styles. One last thing, again on the same sort of note, is if I move the camera up and I move it back, okay, let's say we go, let's rotate it so that it is 90 degrees. We'll just put in 90 over here, directly above our character in this case, which happens to still be the cube. We are looking down. Oh, that 90 degrees did not work for some reason. So hang on one sec. I'm going to just rotate it. Oh, no, it did. Sorry. It looked weird. And I'm going to move it so that now I am on top of my cube. All right, so you can see now this becomes a top-down game. All right, and it still rotates with it like it should. All right, we could also go 3/4, and we can kind of have a bird's eye view. And so by linking your camera, ooh, that was actually a glitch. That wasn't supposed to happen. But by linking your camera to the cube or the player object, your camera will move with the object rather than just sit in one position and have your object locked in that position.